Welcome everyone to a new story that will not only improve your English, but also change how you look at challenges. Today, we're going to meet a young man who was brilliant, ambitious, and incredibly fast, but who struggled with one thing: patience. We will follow his journey and see how the slow, steady current always outlasts the frantic, hurried storm. This is the tale of Kai and the impossible garden. Kai was a 23-year-old software engineer in the bustling, flashing city of San Mira. He was a whiz kid, someone who could process data and solve complex problems in minutes. He lived his life on the highest speed setting. He ordered the fastest fiber optic internet. He drove the quickest sports car, and he wrote lines of code faster than anyone else in his high-tech firm. His personal mantra was simple, almost aggressive. Why wait a second longer than you have to? This demand for immediacy meant he expected instant success in everything. When he began a new coding language, he wanted to be fluent by the weekend. When he tackled a difficult project, he expected immediate, perfect results. This speed had brought him early promotions and a high salary, but it had also left him constantly tense, deeply exhausted, and chronically dissatisfied. He saw every required delay, every unexpected bug in the code, and every necessary period of rest, not as a natural part of growth, but as a frustrating, painful barrier to his final goal. Faster, faster, he would often whisper to his computer screen, his jaw clenched tight, his fingers drumming an impatient, anxious rhythm on the desk. His doctor eventually recommended a mandatory break, a complete digital detox. So, Kai reluctantly left the noise and the concrete of the city for a week, and traveled to the small, quiet, and wonderfully slow village where his grandmother Ilara lived. This village was famous across the region for its ancient, perfectly manicured gardens. Ilara herself was the very definition of unhurried existence. She spoke slowly, moved with a peaceful grace, and seemed to possess an endless supply of deep, comforting calm. When Kai finally arrived, feeling twitchy and disconnected without his city speed, he found his grandmother far from the house, bent over a large, dry patch of dark earth. She was not using any large machines or even a fast spade. She was simply using a small hand trowel, carefully pushing tiny, almost invisible, dusty seeds into the soil one by one. "Grandma, what are you doing all the way out here?" Kai asked, immediately lifting his phone high to see if he could catch a stray bar of Wi-Fi. "The ground looks dead." "Why waste your time?" Ilara looked up, shielding her eyes from the sun, her face illuminated by a gentle smile, the corners of her eyes crinkling with warmth. "Ah, Kai, my quick-witted, quick-footed boy. Welcome home. I am planting my new rose garden, my dear. These are the famous moonlight seeds, a very rare and slow-to-germinate variety. They will, in time, produce the most beautiful, luminous white roses you have ever seen." Kai looked again at the small, insignificant seeds, then back at the vast, empty patch of baked soil. He felt a surge of his familiar impatience. "Roses!" he exclaimed, shaking his head in disbelief. "Grandma, that will take half a year, maybe more. That's inefficient. Why not just drive into town and buy some small, ready-grown rose bushes? You could have a whole, visible, finished garden today." He found the entire exercise excruciatingly slow, a shocking waste of effort and what he considered prime working hours. Ilara wiped her hands, covered in rich soil, on the front of her simple linen apron. She looked at Kai with knowing affection. "Because, my dear boy, a plant that grows fast has shallow, weak roots. It cannot stand firm in the soil when the first big storm comes. It is easily pulled up or blown over. But a plant that is grown from a simple seed, slowly, over many months, learns to find its own water deep beneath the surface and to dig its roots in firmly. It is forced to become deeply strong." She then gave him a task, a test she knew he desperately needed. I need a special path built through this garden patch, a path for walking among the roses when they bloom. I want it made of river stones, like a mosaic, all smooth and perfectly fitted together, touching shoulder to shoulder. Can you do this one thing for your old grandma? Kai agreed instantly, relieved to have a concrete, measurable task he could apply his speed to. A stone path? Of course, easy. I can finish that in 2 days, flat. He immediately decided on the fastest method possible, using cheap, quick-drying cement. He would mix the mortar, set the largest, most visible stones quickly in straight, military-like lines, and then simply pour the rest of the cement over them to hold them tight and smooth the gaps. He bought the supplies, mixed the gray, viscous cement, and worked with his usual intense, frantic speed. He did not bother to measure the spaces between the stones with any care. He just wanted to see the final shape, the finished project. By the late afternoon of the first day, he had created a long, rough, gray path that stretched across the empty ground. "Done, Grandma," he announced proudly, though his body was aching from the rush. "It's set. Now where's that old box of board games?" Ilara came out of the house and inspected his work. She walked slowly, not on the path itself, but alongside it, her expression neither angry nor impressed. She was simply observing carefully. She took one soft step onto the path and walked its length, slowly tapping a stone here and there with the toe of her gardening boot. The cement was hard, yes, but the stones felt hollow, rattling slightly. Suddenly, a stone near the very edge shifted slightly, then wobbled loose, and when she gently pushed it with her foot, it popped right out of the dried cement, falling onto the soil with a small, dusty thump. "See, my dear?" she asked him, her voice remaining quiet and utterly calm. "It's fast, yes, but it is not firm. The stones don't trust the cement to hold them, and the cement hasn't truly surrounded and supported the stones. When the true winter rains come and the ground swells and contracts, this path will crack and crumble. It will not last a single season. It has no true foundation." Kai felt an immediate, unpleasant rush of burning heat in his face. He hadn't just failed the task. He had failed the deeper test she had given him. He realized he had approached building the path exactly how he approached his career and his entire life, with an overwhelming focus on speed and the superficial finish line, rather than on the deep, necessary, and patient work of building a proper, lasting foundation. He looked back at his grandmother, who was now kneeling again, watering her patch of dark earth with a slow, gentle, steady stream from her brass watering can. There was no rush in her movements, only complete commitment to the process. "Tell me, Grandma," Kai asked, his voice suddenly much quieter and stripped entirely of its former arrogance. He truly wanted to know. "How do you build a path that lasts for 50 years? Alara smiled, gesturing not toward the earth, but toward a massive, ancient oak tree at the far edge of the property, a tree whose roots must have been hundreds of feet deep. "It takes a long time to choose the right stones, Kai. Each stone is unique, you see. You must turn it over and over in your hand, feeling its weight, and think about the 2 stones that will sit next to it. You must lay a solid base of fine sand and gravel first, no cement, and let that settle completely. Then you must use a small hammer to tap, tap, tap each stone one by one, until it sinks and locks into its perfect position, not by using great force, but by patient precision. It is a quiet process of small, careful, and often repeated adjustments. For the next 4 days of his vacation, Kai worked on the path again, but this time he was a completely different person. He didn't even look at his phone. He didn't complain or mutter about the slowness. He spent nearly an entire morning simply sorting the thousands of river stones by size, shape, and even color. He took his time laying the thick sand and gravel base, meticulously leveling it with a smooth wooden board. Then, He began the slow, demanding, almost meditative process of placing each stone. Tap, tap, tap. He listened to the sound of the hammer, waiting for that deep, solid thud that meant the stone had found its perfect, unshakable, and permanent home. He had to lift stones, change their angle, and even take out small completed sections and redo them completely when he found a single stone was loose. It was frustrating work, but this time, he let the feeling of frustration pass, reminding himself of the deep, strong roots that had to be patiently grown. When the path was finally, truly complete, a smooth, winding, beautiful mosaic that felt incredibly solid and secure beneath his weight, Kai stepped back, feeling a profound sense of deep calmness and quiet achievement he had never once experienced after finishing any rushed project. The path was perfect. It was firm. It would not budge or crumble, even if he jumped on it. He finally knew the truth. Patience doesn't slow the race. It simply ensures the victory lasts forever.